On my world we have a saying, you do not marry your enemy, you bury them or you outlive them. There is no third path. I married Earth's son anyway, and I am still trying to find the words to explain to my mother what I learned in the 7 days that followed. So let me start at the beginning, the real beginning, not the version they put in the treaty records. My name is Tavri, I am Velt. If you have never seen one of my people, picture something close to your own shape but taller, thinner, with skin the color of wet slate and eyes that have no white in them at all. We do not have hair. We have what your kind would call a crest, a ridge of soft bone that runs from the brow back over the skull, and it darkens when we are afraid. Mine was very dark the day I left home. I want you to understand something before I go further. My people are not weak. We held the outer belt for 900 of your years. We have ships that can fold a moon. We do not lose. But we were losing to Earth. Not in the way you might think. There was no great battle, no burning fleets. That is the part nobody tells correctly. The Velt and the humans had been at the edge of war for almost a decade, skirmishes along the trade lanes, a station lost here, a convoy gone silent there. And in 9 years of it, we had not won a single thing that mattered. Worse than that, we could not understand them. You can fight an enemy you understand. You learn how they think, you find the soft place, you push. We could not find the soft place in humanity. Every time we thought we had them cornered, they did something that made no sense to us. They would lose a position and laugh about it on the open channels. They would take a wound that should have ended a campaign and come back angrier, not broken. Our analysts filed report after report, and every report ended with the same 3 words, in the formal language of my people. We do not know. I read those reports. That was my work before all of this. I was a translator, a cultural attaché, you might say. I spent 11 years learning your languages and your stories, trying to find the key that would let us beat you. I knew your history better than I knew my own. And in all those years of study, I never once met a human in the flesh. Until the council decided to make peace, and decided that peace would be sealed the old way. A marriage. I remember the room where they told me. Pale green light, the kind we use for calm. My mother was there. The high speaker was there. And there was a screen, and on the screen was a face. A human face. I had seen thousands of human faces in recordings, but there is something different about seeing one that is looking back at you. He was older than me, I thought, though I am bad at reading your ages. Brown skin, dark eyes, lines at the corners of them. A short beard going gray at the chin. He did not smile. He did not glare. He just looked at me, the way you might look at the sky before a storm, trying to decide what it was going to do. This is Theo Calderon, the High Speaker said. He has agreed to the arrangement. His government has agreed. The belt will be split. The lanes will reopen. And there will be peace. And in exchange, I said, you sell me to him. The High Speaker's crest went flat, which is our way of frowning. You are not sold. You are joined. There is a difference. Not to me. My mother said nothing. She just reached over and took my hand. Her grip was cold. That told me everything. My mother is the strongest person I have ever known, and her hand was cold. That was when I understood how badly we were losing. The man on the screen, Theo, spoke then. His Velt was rough, badly accented, but he had clearly learned some. That surprised me. None of us expected a human to learn our tongue. I know this is not your choice, he said. The grammar was clumsy. He had the verb in the wrong place, but he had tried. It is not really mine either. I am sorry for that, but I will not be cruel to you. You have my word. I do not know what a Velt's word is worth to you. A human's word is worth a great deal to me. Then he switched to his own language, English, the one I knew best, and he said something I have never forgotten. You're not coming as a prisoner. You're coming as my wife. In my country, that means something. It means I stand between you and the whole world if I have to. I almost laughed. I thought it was a line, a pretty thing diplomats say. I did not understand then that he meant it the way a human means a thing, completely, with no exit. I would understand it later. I would understand it in a corridor full of smoke, with a galactic soldier's hand around his throat. But I am getting ahead of myself. They sent me to Earth on a human ship. That alone was a kind of insult, though I do not think they meant it as one. By our custom, the bride travels on her own people's vessel, surrounded by her own. Instead, I was given over at the boundary station, walked across a docking bridge that smelled of metal and something sweet I could not name, and handed to a human crew like a parcel. The ship was called the Meridian. It was ugly. I will be honest with you, it was an ugly ship. Velt ships are smooth, grown almost, all curves and quiet. The Meridian was all angles and exposed seams and rivets you could see with your own eyes. It looked like it had been built by hand by people in a hurry. Patches over patches. Scorch marks someone had painted over but not well. And it was loud. By the stars it was loud. Everything hummed and clanked and breathed. There were pipes that hissed without warning. The first night I did not sleep at all because every sound made my crest go dark, and I lay there in the small cabin they gave me, certain the whole thing was about to come apart around me. In the morning a crew member knocked on my door, a young woman, short, with hair tied back, grease on her hands. "You didn't eat," she said. "Captain noticed." "I am not hungry." She tilted her head. Humans do that. It means they have decided you are lying, but they are not going to say so. The hum bother you, the ship, first-timers, it gets to them. You stop hearing it after a couple days, I promise. I did not answer. She stood there a moment, then she said something strange. "She's old, but she's never let us down. The Meridian, 40 years she's been flying. We patch her, she keeps us breathing. You learn to love the noise." And she patted the wall of my cabin the way you might pat a beast. Affection, real affection for a machine. I wrote that down. The translator in me could not stop working. They love their machines, I wrote, even the ugly ones, especially the ugly ones. I did not know yet how much that single observation explained. Earth. I had seen 10,000 images of it. None of them prepared me. We came down through the clouds and I had my face against the viewport like a child. It was so much water. They had told me, of course, but knowing a thing and seeing it are different. So much water and so much green, and the cities crawling along the coastlines like something living. And the weather moved. Great spirals of cloud turning slowly over the oceans. On my world, the weather is managed, tame, predictable. Here it just did what it wanted, enormous and indifferent, and the humans lived underneath it anyway. We landed in a place called Cadiz on the edge of a sea in a country called Spain. That was where Theo's family was from, back many generations, though he himself had been born in orbit. He had wanted me to see the old place first. I learned later this was a great kindness, though it did not feel like one at the time. I was terrified. He met me on the landing field himself. No guards, no officials, just him in plain clothes, his hands in his pockets, the wind pulling at his coat. That shocked me more than anything. Where were his soldiers? Where was the show of strength? On my world, a joining of two powers would have 1,000 witnesses and a wall of warriors. Theo Calderon came alone in an old coat and stood there squinting in the sun. "You made it," he said. Was there a chance I would not? He almost smiled at that. "There's always a chance. I'm glad you did." He looked at the Meridian behind me, then back at me. "You hungry? You look like you haven't eaten in 3 days." "I have not." "Yeah, thought so." He turned and started walking like he expected me to follow. "Come on. There's a place by the water. My grandmother used to take me. They do this thing with fish. You'd never believe a person could make fish taste like that." And that was it. No ceremony. No speeches. The man who was supposed to be my husband, the prize of a peace that 2 empires had bled for, just wanted to feed me fish. I followed him because I did not know what else to do. And because, the stars helped me, I was very hungry. I will tell you about those first 3 days quickly. Because they were quiet, and the quiet matters for what came after. We were married on the second day, in a small stone building older than my entire civilization space program. There were perhaps 40 people there. Theo's family mostly. An aunt who cried the whole time and kept touching my arm. A grandfather who could not walk well and made everyone wait while he made his way to the front, and nobody complained. They just waited, and someone held his elbow. Children running between the benches until a mother caught them. I had braced myself for a hostage ceremony, for cold faces and colder words. Instead they fed me, constantly. The aunt kept putting food in front of me and watching to make sure I ate it. When I ate it, she looked so pleased I almost wept, and I did not understand why, and I still struggle to explain it now. They had no reason to be kind to me. I was the alien, the enemy. My people had killed theirs in the Belt. Some of them must have lost someone in those 9 years. But at the table, none of that existed. At the table, I was just the new wife, too thin, far from home, and they were going to fix the too thin part at least, because it was the only part they could reach. That night Theo found me on the balcony looking up. You cannot see many stars from a human city, too much light, but I had found a dark corner. "Looking for home?" he asked. "I do not know which one it is from here." He came and stood beside me, not too close. He had learned that somehow, that my people need a little more space than is due. "That one," he said, pointing. "The orange one low. That's the wrong direction for your son, but it's the brightest thing up there tonight, so let's say that's it. Easier than not having one to look at." It was a lie. A kind, useless, beautiful lie. He gave me a star to call home because the real one was too far to find. I have spent my whole life among people who do not lie like that. Velt do not comfort. We endure. Comfort is considered a weakness, a thing you grow out of as a child. And here was this human, this enemy, handing me a false star like it was nothing, like it cost him nothing, because he had seen that I was sad. "Why are you kind to me?" I asked him. I had to know. "I am the price of your defeat. You should hate me." He was quiet for a while. The sea made its sound below us. "We didn't lose," he said finally. "Neither did you. That's the whole point of this. Nobody won. We all just got tired of dying." He rubbed the back of his neck. "And no, you're not a price. You're a person who got handed a bad situation she didn't ask for. I know what that's like, so," he shrugged. "I'm not going to make it worse. That's all. It's not complicated." It was complicated. It was the most complicated thing I had ever encountered, but I let it go. I should mention, because it matters later, that on the third day I met the rest of his crew. The Meridian wasn't a military ship, not officially. It was a salvage and rescue vessel. Theo had been a rescue captain for 20 years before the war pulled him into it. His crew were not soldiers. They were mechanics and medics and pilots and a navigator named Osai who could do orbital math in his head faster than my people's computers, which I refused to believe until I tested him and lost. These were the people I would be living among. Not warriors, working people, people who fixed broken things and pulled the dying out of wrecks. I remember thinking, with the cold logic my people are trained in, these are not dangerous people. I have never been more wrong about anything in my life. The fourth day is when it started. We had gone back up. The plan was for us to travel together to the joint station at the Belt boundary, the place where the treaty would be formally sealed before both fleets, the public ceremony, the thing the cameras would see. Earth and the Velt, side by side, the war ended. Theo and I were to stand together on the platform, the symbol of it. There were 3 powers that did not want that ceremony to happen. I knew about them, of course. I had read the reports. The peace between Earth and the Velt was good for almost everyone in the sector, but not for everyone. The Korath ascendancy had grown fat on the war, selling weapons to both sides. The Vosk had been pushing into the contested lanes while we were busy fighting each other. And the third, the one that mattered, the one nobody saw coming, was a faction within the Galactic Concord itself. The body that was supposed to keep the peace. The Concord had soldiers, real soldiers, not like Theo's mechanics. The Concord's enforcement arm were the most feared fighters in the sector, and everyone knew it. They were called the Hadeth. Armored, augmented, bred for it across generations. When the Concord wanted a thing to happen, they sent the Hadeth, and the thing happened, and there were no survivors to argue about how. The galaxy was afraid of a lot of things, but if you asked any of us, Velt, Vosk, Korath, any of us, who the strongest soldiers in the sector were, we would all say the same. The Hadeth. Not the humans, never the humans. We feared the humans because we did not understand them the way you fear a dark room, but the Hadeth we feared the way you fear a knife. Cleanly, with respect. A conquered faction did not want Earth and the Velt at peace. A united human Velt bloc would be strong enough to start saying no to the conquered, and so they decided to stop the ceremony. Quietly, with a knife. They sent the Hadeth. And the Hadeth boarded the Meridian. It was the middle of the ship's night. I was awake because I was still not sleeping well, the hum of the old ship in my bones. I felt the change before I heard the alarm. A shudder, a wrong sound under the familiar wrong sounds, a docking clamp that should not have been there. Then the lights went red and Osai's voice came over the ship, and it was not calm. Boarders, aft airlock, everybody up now. I came out of my cabin into the corridor, and the young mechanic, her name was Reyes, I had learned, the one who told me about loving the noise, nearly ran into me. She had a tool in her hand. A wrench, I think you would call it. Just a wrench. Her eyes were huge. "Get back inside," she said. "Lock it, don't come out." "What is happening?" "Hadeth," she said the word like a curse. "6 of them. They came for the captain and for you. Get inside, please." And then they came around the corner. I had read about the Hadeth. I had never seen one. The reports do not do them justice. They were tall, taller than me, and that armor matte black, drinking the red light, no seams, no joints you could see, like they had been carved from a single piece of night. Their faceplates had no eyes, just a smooth curve, and somehow that was worse. They moved without sound. 6 of them in that narrow corridor, and I did not hear a single footstep. The lead one looked at me. I do not know how I knew it was looking at me with no eyes, but I knew. It raised one hand and pointed at me, and a voice came out of it, flat and translated and entirely without feeling. "The Velt comes with us. The human dies here. Stand aside." Reyes did not stand aside. I want you to understand what she was. She was perhaps 25 of your years. She fixed engines. She had grease under her fingernails and a wrench in her hand, and she came up to the Hadeth's chest at most. She had no augments, no armor. She was, by every measure my people use, nothing. A worker. The weakest possible thing to put in front of a Hadeth. She stepped between me and them. "No," she said. Just that, no, and she set her feet. The Hadeth tilted its head. I think even it was confused. I think in all its years of being the most feared thing in the sector, very few people had ever simply said no to its face with a wrench in their hand. "Move," it said. "She's crew," Reyes said. Her voice was shaking. Her whole body was shaking, but she did not move. "She married the captain. That makes her ours. You're not taking anything off this ship. You want her, you want him, you go through all of us. And there's more of us than you think." I did not understand. There were 6 Hadeth. There was one frightened girl with a wrench. The math was not difficult. I opened my mouth to tell her to move, to save herself, to let them take me. I was the cause of this. I was willing to go. And that was when I heard it. Behind me, down the other corridor. Footsteps, not silent, loud. Human footsteps, lots of them, running toward the sound of trouble instead of away from it. I turned and I saw them coming. The whole crew. Osai, the medic, done. The cook, an enormous old man named Petrov. 3 others whose names I am ashamed to say I had not yet learned. And Theo at the front in a sleeveless shirt, no armor, no weapon. I could see his face. I had only ever seen Theo calm. Calm on the screen, calm on the landing field. Calm on the balcony handing me a false star. Gentle, even. A man who fed people and told kind lies and loved his ugly old ship. His face in that corridor was not calm. I had spent 11 years studying humanity. I had read every report. We do not know, they all said. We do not know what makes them so hard to break. In that corridor, looking at Theo Calderon's face, I started to understand. And the understanding turned my crest as dark as it has ever been in my life. Because I finally saw it. The thing the reports could not name. The thing that made the galaxy afraid of a species of mechanics and medics and rescue workers who flew ugly patched-up ships and loved the noise. They had decided I was theirs. And the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not the strongest soldier. It is not the best weapon. It is a human who has decided that you belong to them and has just watched something reach out to take you away. The lead Hadeth's hand closed around Rey's throat and lifted her off the floor. And Theo Calderon, captain of the Meridian, a man with no weapon and no armor and no augments, started to run. Let me tell you what I expected to happen. I expected Theo Calderon to die. I had done the math. 6 Hadeth, 1 unarmed man and a handful of mechanics. I had read the reports for 11 years. The Hadeth did not lose. There was no record of them losing. They were the knife the conquered used to cut, and you do not win against a knife by running at it with your bare hands. So when Theo ran, my whole body braced for the moment I would watch him torn apart. It did not happen the way I expected. Nothing about humans ever happens the way you expect. That is the lesson. That is the only lesson, really, and it took a corridor full of smoke to teach it to me. The Hadeth holding Rey's by the throat saw Theo coming. Of course it did. It had sensors that could track a heartbeat through a wall. It turned lazily and brought up its other arm, and there was a weapon built into that arm. I could see it charging, a soft whine and a glow. It was going to kill Theo before he crossed half the distance. And then the lights went out. Not the red emergency lights, all of them. The whole corridor dropped into black, total black, the kind you only get in deep space when a machine decides to stop pretending. And I heard Osai's voice, somewhere behind me, perfectly calm, almost bored. Killed the grid, aft section, have fun. I did not understand. The Hadeth had sensors. Darkness meant nothing to them. They did not need light. This was a foolish move, I thought, a desperate move, the act of people who had run out of real options. Then I heard the first one scream. You have to understand. I did not know the Hadeth could scream. In every recording, every report, they were silent. They killed in silence and they died in silence. On the rare occasions anyone managed to kill one. The sound of a Hadeth screaming was so wrong that for a moment my mind refused to process it. The lights came back, the dim red ones, and I saw. The crew of the Meridian had not run at the Hadeth. That was the thing. They were not stupid. Theo running had not been a charge. It had been a distraction. While the Hadeth's attention went to the captain, while it brought up its weapon arm to deal with the obvious threat, Petrov, the cook, the enormous old man, had come up the side of the corridor in the dark and put something against the back of the Hadeth's neck. Later they told me what it was, a plasma cutter, the kind they used to slice open the hulls of wrecked ships to pull out survivors, a tool, not a weapon, a tool for rescue, for opening metal to save the people trapped inside. Petrov used it to open the one place the Hadeth armor had a seam, the base of the skull, where the helmet met the spine. He had spent 30 years cutting open ships. He knew exactly where metal joins metal. He knew exactly where the weak weld always is. The Hadeth dropped Rey's and went down, and it did not get back up. 1. I want to slow down here, because this is the part the reports could never explain, and I think now I can. My people are warriors. We are proud of it. We train our young in the old forms, we keep our honor, we meet our enemies face to face on open ground. We have rules for war. The Hadeth had rules too, different ones, crueler ones, but rules. Everyone in the galaxy who fought according to some idea of what fighting was. A soldier meets a soldier. Strength meets strength. The stronger one wins. That is the order of things. Humans do not fight like that. I had read it 100 times in the reports and never understood it. They do not respect the form of combat, one analyst wrote, frustrated. They will not meet you where you are strong. They flee and then they strike from a place you did not think to defend, with a tool you did not think was a weapon, and they feel no shame about it. There is no honor in their war. There is only the outcome. I had read that as weakness, cowardice even, a people with no warrior's pride. Standing in that corridor, I understood it was the opposite. It was not that humans had no pride. It was that they had decided, somewhere deep in their long, bloody history, that pride was less important than the people they loved staying alive. They had thrown away the rules of honorable combat the way you throw away a tool that does not work, and they had picked up the only thing that did work: anything, everything, whatever was in reach. A wrench, a plasma cutter, the dark, each other. The Hadeth had spent generations becoming the perfect soldier. The humans had spent the same generations becoming something the galaxy had no word for, because we kept trying to measure them as soldiers, and they kept refusing to be measured that way at all. They were not soldiers. They were survivors. There is a difference, and it is the most important difference there is, and it is the reason the galaxy was right to be afraid. The second Hadeth had Theo. It had recovered fast, they were fast, and while Petrov dealt with the first, the second caught Theo by the front of his shirt and slammed him into the corridor wall hard enough that I felt it in the floor. It drew back its weapon arm. I screamed, I'm not ashamed to say it, I screamed his name. And Theo, pinned to the wall, one arm caught, his face cut and bleeding, did the most human thing I have ever seen anyone do. He grinned, blood on his teeth, held off the floor by a soldier 10 times his strength. And he grinned because Dunn, the medic, the quiet one, the one who spent his days putting people back together, had come up behind the Hadeth and jammed a medical injector against the unarmored joint behind its knee and emptied it. It was not a weapon. It was a sedative. The kind they used on patients in pain, on people thrashing in shock so they could be treated. A dose meant to put a wounded human gently to sleep. They did not have the dose for a human. They had the dose for a Hadeth, because Dunn, quiet Dunn, who I had thought was the gentlest creature on the ship, had spent the 3 days of my visit doing one thing in his spare time. He had been calculating. He had pulled the Concord's own public medical data on Hadeth physiology, the data the Concorde released to prove how superior its soldiers were, and he had worked out exactly how much sedative it would take to drop one. He had been preparing for this. They all had. From the moment I came aboard, this crew of mechanics and medics had quietly, without telling me, without telling anyone, made a plan for the day someone came to take me away. Because they had decided I was theirs, and humans do not lose what is theirs without making the taking cost more than anyone can pay. The second Hadeth's knee buckled, the grip on Theo loosened, and Theo, free, did not run. He grabbed the Hadeth's weapon arm with both hands and turned it, and when the third Hadeth fired down the corridor at him, the shot hit the second one instead. 2 and 3, one shot. Theo Calderon, rescue captain, who had never been a soldier in his life. "Osai," he shouted, "how many left?" 3, aft, they're regrouping. Cap, they're regrouping, that means they're scared. I have never seen Hadeth regroup. Then we don't give them time. I have thought a great deal since that night about why the Hadeth regrouped. You must understand how strange it was. The Hadeth did not regroup. They did not need to. They were the apex. When the Hadeth fought, lesser things died, and that was the natural order, and there had never been any reason for them to pause and reconsider. But 3 of them were down in under a minute. Not to a fleet, not to a champion, to a cook with a cutting torch and a medic with a needle and a captain who would not stay where he was put. They had come expecting to walk through a crew of frightened workers. And the frightened workers had turned out to be the most dangerous thing they had ever met, and some part of them, even them, had felt the cold drop of it. Fear, real fear, the first the Hadeth had felt in generations. And here is the thing I finally understood, the thing I have been trying to explain to my mother ever since. That is why the galaxy feared Earth. Not because humans were strong. They were not the way the Hadeth were strong. Not because they had better weapons. They had worse weapons. Not because they were fearless. Rays had been shaking, Theo had bled, every one of them had been afraid. The galaxy feared Earth because humans had taken fear and done something no other species had figured out how to do with it. They had stopped letting it tell them to run. They felt it, all of it, every bit as much as anyone, and then they walked forward anyway, toward the thing that frightened them, because behind them was someone they had decided to keep safe. We had spent 9 years of war trying to make humans afraid. We had succeeded completely. We had never once understood that making a human afraid does not make them stop. It only tells them where the fight is. The reports were right. We do not know, we never knew. You cannot beat a people by frightening them when fear is the fuel they run on. The last 3 Hadeth made their stand in the cargo bay. The crew herded them there, and I use that word on purpose, herded, the way you would herd something dangerous into a pen by cutting power section by section, sealing doors, forcing them back into the one large open space on the ship. I went with Theo. He told me to stay back in the cabin, locked in. I refused. He looked at me for 1 second, my crest dark, my hand steady, and he nodded once and did not argue. He understood. By then I had decided something too. The cargo bay was full of salvage. That was the Meridian's trade. They pulled wrecks apart and sold the pieces, or they pulled the living out of wrecks and asked for nothing. The bay was a maze of recovered hull plating, dead engines, coils of cable, tanks of compressed gas, all of it stacked and netted and waiting to be sorted. To me it looked like junk. To the crew it looked like 1,000 weapons. The 3 Hadeth came in expecting open ground. A soldier wants open ground. Clear lines, clear sight, room for strength to be strength. The humans did not give them open ground. The humans gave them a junkyard in the dark, full of things that could cut and crush and explode, every one of which the crew knew by heart and the Hadeth did not know at all. I will not pretend it was clean. It was not. Rays was hurt. A Hadeth caught her with a glancing shot, and Dunn had to drag her behind a hull plate and work on her while the others fought. Petrov took a blow that broke something in his chest. I heard it, and I heard him keep going anyway, the old man roaring like a beast, swinging that cutting torch. I brought down a stack of hull plating on one of them from above, riding the cargo crane, screaming math the whole time, ranges and angles, turning the ship's own salvage into an avalanche. And Theo went after the last one himself. It was the lead Hadeth, the one that had pointed at me, the one that had said the human dies here. It had lost its weapon arm somewhere in the dark, sheared off against a bulkhead, and it was still the most frightening thing in the room, and Theo went straight at it with a length of broken pipe like that was a reasonable thing to do. I thought again that I was about to watch him die. I had thought it so many times that night that the thought had worn smooth. But by then I had started to learn, so I did not just watch. When the Hadeth raised its remaining arm to crush my husband's skull, I was behind it. I am Velt. We are not the warriors we used to be, but we are not nothing, and I am taller than a human and stronger than I look, and I had spent my whole life being told that comfort was weakness and endurance was all. I had a great deal of endurance. I drove my shoulder into the back of the Hadeth's knee, the place Dunn had taught me in one frantic shouted sentence when I refused to stay behind. The joint, the seam, the weak weld. It went down on one knee, just for a moment, just long enough. And Theo brought the pipe down on the base of its skull, where Petrov had opened the first one, and the most feared soldier in the sector fell at the feet of a rescue captain and his alien wife, in a junkyard in the dark, and did not rise. Silence. Then Osai from somewhere up in the rafters of the cargo bay in a voice gone hoarse. That's 6, That's all six. Cap, it's over. We got him, it's over. I sat down on the deck. My legs simply stopped holding me. Theo dropped the pipe and came over and knelt in front of me, and his hands were shaking now, the fear arriving late, the way it does, after the body decides it is allowed. "You okay?" he said. "Tavri, are you okay? Talk to me." "You ran at it with a pipe," I said. "It was all I could manage. It would have killed you. You ran at it with a pipe." "Yeah," he let out a breath that was half a laugh. "Wasn't really thinking it through, I'll be honest." "Why?" He looked at me like I had asked him why water was wet. "Because they came to take you," he said. "Simple, total, no exit. I told you on the screen back at the start. I told you what it means in my country, what I said to you. I stand between you and the whole world if I have to." He wiped blood out of his eye. "Turns out the whole world includes the Hadeth. Didn't know that when I said it. Wouldn't have changed it." I had heard him say those words on the screen weeks ago, and I had thought it was a pretty line. A diplomat's line. A thing humans say. I understood now that it had never been a line. It was the truest thing he had ever told me. Humans do not say things they do not mean about the people they have decided to keep. That is the whole of it. That is what 9 years of war could not put in a report. They mean it. They mean it all the way down, past honor, past pride, past fear, past sense. And when you try to take what they mean it about, you discover that the gentle ones, the mechanics and the medics and the cooks who love their ugly old ships, are the most dangerous beings the galaxy has ever produced. Around me the crew was getting up, helping each other up. Dunn had Ray's stabilized. She was awake, pale, swearing weakly, and Petrov was sitting against a hull plate with his broken chest and laughing, actually laughing between gasps. Os climbed down from the crane and immediately started complaining that they'd dented a cargo plate worth more than his salary, and someone threw a rag at him. And somehow, in the middle of the bodies of 6 fallen Hadeth, these people were laughing. I had seen it in the reports. They laugh after an analyst had written, baffled, almost frightened, even badly wounded, even having barely survived. They laugh. We do not understand the function of this behavior. I understood it now. It was not bravado. It was not madness. It was relief, and it was love, and it was the simple animal joy of having kept what they were trying to keep. They were laughing because everyone they had decided to protect was still breathing. There is no better reason to laugh in the whole of the galaxy, and we had spent 9 years failing to see it for what it was. The ceremony happened. We were late and bruised, and Petrov attended with his chest wrapped, and his arm in a sling and a grin that would not quit, and Ray's was in a medical chair, and the official Velt delegation took one look at the crew of the Meridian and could not figure out what had happened to them. We told them the truth. 6 Hadeth. A conquered faction. An attempt to stop the peace. They did not believe us. Not at first. The idea that 6 Hadeth had boarded a civilian salvage vessel and none of them had walked away, it broke something in the delegation's understanding of the universe, the same thing it had broken in mine. They sent investigators. The investigators confirmed it. And then the story went out across the sector, quietly at first and then not quietly at all, and the shape of the galaxy changed. The conquered faction that had sent the Hadeth was exposed and broken. Nobody, after that, wanted to be the power that had tried to murder a human's wife on a human ship. The lesson had been learned, the way humans teach lessons, not with a speech, but with an outcome no one could argue with. And the peace held. It holds still. Earth and the Velt side by side. The belt split fairly. The lanes open. My people and Theo's no longer trying to understand each other through the sights of a weapon. I sent a long message home to my mother trying to explain. I do not think I succeeded. How do you explain to a people who buried their enemies that the strongest thing in the galaxy is not a soldier at all? That it is a tired old man with a cutting torch who decided you belong to his crew? That the species we feared because we could not understand them is, in the end, terribly simple to understand, and we were just looking in the wrong place looking for strength, when we should have been looking for love? I do not think my mother understood the message. But she sent one back. 3 words in the formal language of my people, the same 3 words that ended every report we ever filed about humanity. We do not know. Except this time, at the bottom in the casual register, the way you speak to family, she had added one more line. But you do now, stay with them, stay where it is safe. My mother, who taught me comfort, was weakness, telling me to stay where it was safe. She understood more than she let on. I am Tavri. I am Velt. I married a human for peace, because 2 empires were too tired to keep dying, and I was the price they agreed to pay. I want to tell you what I learned in the 7 days that followed, because I think it is the only thing worth knowing about the galaxy we all live in now. The Hadeth were the strongest soldiers in the sector. Everyone knew it. We feared them cleanly, the way you fear a knife. And we feared the humans too, but we feared them the way you fear a dark room, vaguely, without knowing why. A fear we were almost ashamed of, because they did not look like anything to be afraid of. They were soft. They were kind. They loved their ugly machines and told kind lies and fed strangers fish and laughed when they should have wept. We had it exactly backward. The knife you can see. The knife meets you where you expect it, fights by rules, and can be broken when it finds something it cannot cut. But there is no breaking a creature that feels every fear you can put into it and walks toward you anyway, that picks up whatever is in reach and refuses every honorable form of defeat, that has decided, quietly, completely, with no exit, that you are theirs and they are going to keep you. We thought the galaxy feared Earth because we did not understand humans. We were wrong. The galaxy feared Earth because, somewhere deep down, in the part of us that is older than our ships and our honor and our 900 years in the belt, we understood them perfectly. We knew exactly what they were. We had just been hopping all that time, that we were wrong.